Well, I'm so pleased you all want to hear more about Marie Reed Lincoln. And yeah, I'm going to start with one of the frequent refrains in Marie Lincoln's letters was, I have nothing interesting to write, but I wouldn't be here if she didn't actually have interesting things to write in her letters. And she wrote a lot of letters, at least two a week, and all of them to her parents in her challenging cursive. So if we could go to the first slide, you get a sample of her handwriting and her senior yearbook photo. And if you want to talk about the handwriting, we can do that at the end of the presentation. It had its challenges. So who was Marie Lincoln? Well, she hailed from Mifflinburg, Pennsylvania, in Union County, and that's northwest of Harrisburg. Her father, John, was a bank teller, and her mother, Gertrude, was a homemaker, and she was their only child. And in these letters, Marie wrote about all kinds of things. She wrote about life at Wilson, but also doings back home, occasionally current events. She wrote about her clothes a lot and employed an impressive technical vocabulary when doing so. Marie, and by inference her mother, were intensely interested in how Marie dressed. And one of the features of Marie's letters was what I came to call the fashion report. When she returned to campus after summer, Christmas, or Easter break, Marie would write and ask her mother for help in adopting a new style, embellishment, or alteration that the girls were now wearing. Along with the fashion report, Marie also supplied her parents with what I came to think of as the medical digest. Health and sickness, her own as well as that of other members of the college, were topics of intense interest to her. I could go on and on about what her letters reveal, but I'm going to focus today on two topics: life at the college, everybody wants to hear about that, and the social media aspect of writing letters. That is, how an early 20th century Wilson student browsed her feed and kept in touch. So let's look at life at Wilson. If we could go to the next image, it should be an aerial view of the campus. This is not a photograph. They didn't have drones in 1905 when this appeared in, I think, a campus view book. But what's fun about this is all of us who know Wilson can see familiar buildings in an unfamiliar setting. So I'm just going to briefly go left to right and then right to left. So starting on the left, we have Thompson Music Hall, which was just completed and opened in 1905. Then you have Norland, that's the oldest campus building. And attached to it is the main hall complex. And this included the dining hall and was the college's first residence hall. Then you have Edgar, built in the 1890s. And then the new gym, built around 1900. And behind those, the boiler plant, built in 1895. And all of those buildings are still around, except for Old Main, which was torn down in the 1950s and replaced by Mac Dave. Starting from the right side are also some buildings that existed then and now. South Hall, which was known as Senior Hall in Marie's day. And next to it is the building we call Alumna House, but back then it was the residence of the college president. Though midway through Marie's time at Wilson, the president of Wilson moved into what is now the Hankey Center, and his former residence was turned into student housing. And next to that comes a building familiar to you, but in another location. That's Harmony Cottage. And the building next to it, however, is no more. That's Fletcher Hall, which was a family residence bought by the college and turned into a dormitory that could house some 40 students. It stood where today you have the Science Center parking lot near Park Avenue. It was demolished in 1957. Marie lived there her first year at Wilson, then moved to Main Hall and spent her last year, where else, in Senior Hall. But of course, the thing that really blows our minds is look at Philadelphia Avenue. It runs straight as an arrow through the center of the college. More on that later. Marie came to the college in the fall of 1902, aged 16, which seems young, but she came as a prep student, someone who needed to take additional classes before qualifying for admission as a freshman. So she actually spent, 5 years at Wilson, and just think how many letters that means that I had to transcribe. It's a lot. And these letters show that she seems to have taken to the college from the beginning. Despite her ritual complaints about the food, She was there to complete the classical course, which involved languages. She studied Latin, German, and French, as well as geometry, trigonometry, chemistry, zoology, psychology, English lit and composition, history, and she also took piano lessons. As a scholar, Marie was quite diligent, recording the hours she put in studying and the types of assignments she was working on. She earned high B's and low A's, but groused about not getting better grades given the amount of work she put in. That should count for something, right? At one point, she referred to Wilson as this strenuous school, but in spite of its demands, she did not have much patience with students who weren't willing to apply themselves. But what she wanted most out of her college experience was to make friends, what she termed intimate friends. The letters of her first years in particular are a chronicle of this search and its hopes and disappointments. She did not get on well with her roommate, Sarah Steens, a friend from home. Marie could be quite tart, even cruel, in talking about Sarah in her letters, as in, Sarah put one of her new dresses on this evening, the blue one, and it has a little train on it, foolish girl. She is too short to wear long dresses. She also took peeks at Sarah's letters and reported on what she found, and got incredibly miffed when some of Sarah's grades proved to be better than hers. At the end of the first year, the two agreed to part ways, which resulted in much anxiety over who would be her roommate as Marie's freshman year loomed. She took her chances on an assigned roommate and got Amy Wagner, who was a year younger than Marie and proved rather exasperating. Within days of returning to school, Marie wrote her parents, I may as well confess I do not like Amy. I know she is a nice girl and that she comes from a good family, but she is so kiddish. And if there were not so many lovely new girls here my age and girls I like at the first look, it would be different. But as it is, when I go out of my room, I think about her and rooming with her all the time. And it makes me so that I don't feel full of fun. It did not help that Marie was fanatical about keeping her surroundings clean and tidy and was an early riser. Amy, she noted, did not make her bed until 2:30 in the afternoon. Now, you know that kind of business does not suit me. Amy's approach to studying was also annoying. Marie could not figure out how the woman could do so little of it and get good grades. She sort of gives the teachers the impression that she knows a lot, wrote Marie, and then gets good marks that way. Of course, she's had lots of training in literature at home and therefore does not need to study that so much. But I don't see how she can get her marks and not study. She thinks I study too much and always says that, but I know it isn't so. And here she sits and reads a book. My one consolation is that sometime I will get a reward for studying. For fool away my time, I will not. Marie resolved to change roommates as soon as possible. But her attitude towards Amy received a life-altering adjustment in late September 1903 with the Mont Alto excursion. This was the big opening event of the school year, when all the students boarded a train for a day of picnicking and hiking on South Mountain. In climbing, Marie fell and hurt her back. The injury worsened and she was bedridden for several days. In this time, Amy proved to be the consummate nurse. She read aloud to Marie, wrote letters for her, signing herself Secretary Pro Tem, fetching and carrying, ran errands into town for her, and all with the grace and good humor that glows between the lines of Marie's letters, which led Marie to change her tune about getting rid of her. At first, her approval was grudging. Here's October 2nd, 1903. Amy improves upon acquaintance, and I will not change my roommate. There's nothing attractive about her, but she's very nice when one becomes acquainted. She is rather gushing and flighty. She was very nice to me when I was in bed, and she would do anything for me if I would hurt her feelings very much if I should change, and then, too, I have no one to change with. 2 days later, she wrote, I would not change roommates for love or money now, for I like Amy very much. She has been very good to me. I did not like her at first, but now I think she's all right. And by the end of the semester in December, she was writing, oh, I tell you, Amy's a peach. There are few like her. How little I thought I should get to like her and that we should be chums. Do you know people think we look alike and some cannot tell us apart? The two roomed together for the remainder of their years at Wilson. One of the great things about Marie's letters is the sheer wealth of detail about being a Wilson College student 125 years ago, such as the rhythm of the college day, which was marked by bells and lights. As Marie described it, the first rising bell rings at 6:30, the big tower bell at 7, then the lights come on and the breakfast bell rings at 7:30, and lights out was at 10 p.m. The lights out could come when she was in the middle of writing a letter, as she noted on one occasion. Lights are going, gone dark as pitch now. When that happened, one got up and lit candles. In April 1905, Marie talked about returning to her room after a college event with Amy and two friends. The girls stayed till after lights. Then we lit a candle and talked some more. Marie recorded on one occasion a lovely way students worked around the lights out situation. When she and Amy returned from visiting the latter's family in Carlisle, their late train meant that they would be arriving at a dorm shrouded in darkness. We arrived safely at 10 o'clock Monday evening, she wrote. Edna O'Connor and Alice Butterfield, who roomed next to us, had lighted their candle and brought it over, pulled our beds down and opened them, and themselves were at our door to meet us. It was quite a relief to going into a dark room and falling over everything. While law-abiding herself, Marie delighted in telling stories of Wilson girls behaving, in her view, badly, accompanied by sniffs of moral outrage. This from October of 1902. The other night, we heard some fellows come up the railroad track next to my window and whistle. Then we listened, and pretty soon up went a window on the second floor, and some girls clapped. Then the boys talked and said, "Come on out and take a walk." And the girls said, "Wait until tomorrow night." So they waited, and the next night at 8:30, the boys came again and talked. Then the next night, they whistled once, and the girls went with them. When the 10 o'clock bell rang and we were going to bed, we saw the 4 girls and 4 boys come walking down the track. So I saw girls skip. I think they ought to be found out, and if they would be expelled. They ought to be ashamed. There was, of course, concern among the college administrators about controlling male access to college women and vice versa, as was the case when Marie wrote about the behavior of 2 Wilson girls on a college field trip to Gettysburg. Instead of staying with the group, they immediately went off upon arrival with 2 men who were there to meet them, only rejoining the Wilson group to get on the train back to the college. According to Marie, they were publicly reprimanded in chapel yesterday, and the one, who was a town girl, is never to be allowed to go on a college excursion again. The other, who was a senior, has been put on probation. That is, if she disobeys the rules of the college in any way, either suspension or expulsion will be the result. She also recorded the occasional elopement or attempted elopement. In October 1905, a Wilson student tried to do this. According to Marie, she asked permission to go to Harrisburg to meet, as she said, her father. She said she'd gotten a telegram from him, but had torn it up. Mrs. Smock was the house mother to the students. Mrs. Smock said she would not dare go unless she took a chaperone. So the girl left Mrs. Smock with the impression she would not go, but Saturday morning, it seems, she got up and took the early train to Harrisburg, and no one knew about it. Marie's verdict? It takes all kinds of freaks to make up a school. Marie could also poke fun at herself. In the weeks before Christmas 1905, when discussion of what she wanted for presents was a hot letter writing topic, she informed her parents, "You are hereby relieved from the promise of getting me a chafing dish for Christmas." And if you don't know, a chafing dish is a kind of hot plate fueled by jellied alcohol. And it was insanely popular at the turn of the century when I went looking for, you had cookbooks, recipes, models, all this stuff. So this was a big deal, and it was certainly becoming popular at the college. So here, Marie, of course, wants one. But she says, "You're hereby relieved from the promise of getting me a chafing dish for Christmas, the reason I will now state. Last week, Alice Butterfield and I went to make some cocoa on her chafing dish. We got it too full of alcohol and it flamed up. Alice carried the lamp part to the window and the flames caught the curtains. I ran for help, and one of the girls who knew how to use the fire extinguisher in the hall grabbed that and with the powder in it put out the flames. The curtains were burned and Alice's eyebrows singed, but that's all. We are now through with chafing dishes. I did not tell you before for fear I'd make it sound too bad. Since it is all over, we have to laugh, but at the time, we were scared. I'm going to get a little drink of water here. Excuse me. The letters also chronicle various, I might say, momentous initiatives under discussion at the college. January 1904 saw the establishment of a college-wide fire code and inauguration of fire drills. Marie notes that this was due to the recent fires, which made me wonder about all those candles and chafing dishes in use. But the college literary periodical, the Feuilletre, reported that the catalyst was the Iroquois Theater fire in Chicago in December 1903. In a venue packed with 1,700 people, over 600 lost their lives trying to get out. The tragedy led to reforms in building codes and raised awareness in more places than Wilson about evacuating large buildings safely. Marie reported on the appointment of fire brigades, a fire chief, and fire captains for each residence hall, and the rather lame results of those first fire drills. And a little footnote here, it took a few more years, but in the fall of 1906, the college, according to Marie, finally passed a rule. No candles are to be used in any of the buildings. Anybody who does use one will be sent home. At about time, I might add. January of 1905 also saw some important initiatives. One was college president Matthew Reeser's successful bid to persuade the borough to reroute Philadelphia Avenue around the college. Marie's account provides some interesting details about how this was accomplished. You know, I told you about the changing of the road and the other improvements. Well, President Reeser says he must secure $18,000 to carry it through. He's already secured some from wealthy men and women, and he wants the college to give $1,000. That is, each girl must secure $5 from someone or in some way. That same January, Marie described the establishment of the WCGA and the institution of an honor principal. And an all-student meeting was held where some students, including Marie, balked at the proposal that they pledged not to cheat, to turn anyone in they found cheating, and to ostracize anyone found cheating. But the college president made it clear that there was to be a student-run board to deal with violators. No faculty or staff would be involved. He explained that the reporter girl was not telling on her, wrote Marie, but it was the honorable thing to do. We voted by a rising vote, which was almost unanimously carried to report anyone whom we saw cheating to the board. Thus, you see, the faculty has nothing to do with it and are not even going to be in the room when the exam is going on. We are put entirely on our honor. Marie soon found herself having to confront the issue in her trigonometry final exam at the end of January, where two students blatantly cheated. She did not want to turn them in, but talked to her class president about it and was relieved when another student did so. One of the accused girls was someone she knew, and she discussed her feelings about that girl's situation. Those two girls who cheated in trig are to be suspended for 2 weeks. They must go tomorrow. I was up to see them before dinner, and oh, how I do pity them, and one of them I like real well. She has cried till she can cry no more. President Reeser read it aloud in chapel this morning about them. I think it is pretty hard lines, but he says it's for the good of the college. The one says she could bear the disgrace herself if it were not for her parents, for she is the only girl and they dote on her. Marie corresponded with this young woman in her academic exile and continued friends with her when she returned to the college. Another January, another change. In 1906, Marie reported, they are trying to get rid of the preps here. All the big colleges have a prep school separate from the college, and on Tuesday, when the trustees meet, we are going to petition them not to have preps here anymore. What is wanted is a prep school in town entirely separate from the college. I hope it will be that way, as it would raise the rank of Wilson. And indeed, the Penn Hall Prep School was established later that year in October. Marie's desire to raise the rank of Wilson was the product of a growing attachment to the college that one can track in the letters. A big factor was the intense class rivalry fostered at the college. Like the competition for the Hogwarts House Cup in the Harry Potter books, Wilson classes competed to become the reigning champions on the playing field, that is, field hockey and basketball. Marie faithfully reported the scores, wished she could be on the hockey team, dressed in her class colors for the games, and was over the moon when the freshmen beat the sophomores in the championship hockey game Thanksgiving Day, 1903. The victory allowed the winners, as Marie put it, to keep their flag and display it for the next year in the gym. The night after the great victory, the freshmen assembled and processed through all the college buildings, yelling and singing, culminating in a climb to the top of the college tower where their banner was proudly flown. You cannot realize what this means to us, wrote Marie. We have a brilliant class history to write and now can never be disgraced. It is simply grand. And her enthusiasm extended to decorating her envelopes. So let's look at the next couple of slides. This one shows the back of the envelope where she's written a giant 1907 and a stylized WC 1907. And if you go to the next one, you see she's written some verses upside down. And if we go to the next one, here are the verses right side up in her challenging cursive. It reads, "Oh, naughty seven, the greatest class that Wilson ever knew. The Sophs are fleeting. We know they're beating. We'll beat them till they're nearly black and blue." Blood sports aside, one gets the glimpses of student interest in the larger world and its doings. In November 1904, Marie described the week of debates and parades held at the college leading up to the national presidential election. "On Tuesday evening, we had a campaign parade here," she wrote. "In the past week, the Republican and Democratic parties organized and divided into brigades, appointed prominent citizens, a band, etc., etc. Then on Tuesday at 7:30, the parade started. We marched all over the campus, cheering and yelling, then to the gym where political speeches were made. For these speeches, Wilson students dressed up as Teddy Roosevelt, William Jennings Bryan, Pennsylvania Governor Pennypacker, and others. They held an election, Roosevelt won, and they celebrated with a big bonfire." So we can see that Marie's plaint about not having anything interesting to write about is patently not true. The faithfulness of her correspondence and the discipline it took becomes even more impressive when you realize that Marie was not just writing her parents, but seemingly everyone. Yes, letter writing was the favored social media platform of her day. This is not as obvious as it sounds. While people have written letters for millennia, the pressure to write and write well and write a lot, and the mail system itself contributed at the turn of the century to create a more intense, vigorous, perhaps onerous letter writing climate. One can get a sense of the demands of this medium from a letter in this collection that was not written by Marie, but by her maternal grandmother, Caroline Reed, to Marie's mother, dated November 22nd, 1904. In it, Caroline writes about the difficulties attendant upon trying to write a letter. "Well, I guess you think I've forgotten to write to you, but every time I thought of it, there was something there to hinder me from doing so. Therefore, I hope you will excuse me." We get a description of her attempts to write getting interrupted. "This is the third time I've been hindered from writing this letter. Someone was sure to ring that bell when I would begin to write. I hope I can finish it now." But getting letters was fun, as Grandma Caroline noted. "I received a very nice letter from Marie. It showed she had not forgotten her Grandmammy Reed. I will answer it sometime before long." But that's the downside. One is expected to answer, as Caroline was beginning to realize when she lamented, "Letter writing is coming to be quite a task. I do not want to get in that habit, if possible." Well, Marie got quite into that habit. Not long after she arrived at the college, she asked her parents, "Is there anyone at home you want me to write to? I mean, some older person? Not carry on a correspondence with them, but just write," which is an interesting distinction, denoting the difference between saying hello, thinking of you, and having an intimate, ongoing conversation by post. It was also noticeable from the beginning how much time Marie spent in her letters talking about her letters. Letters sent and received, letters she should or shouldn't write, the workings of the postal system. She often included a letter writing and receiving report. Here's one from November of 1902. I wrote to Uncle Rufus. I wrote also to Grandpa Ma Reed. I had a letter from Jimmy, too. That was a cousin. None from Miss Allen. I wrote to Mrs. Gutelius. Did she ever mention it? Also, Miss Ella today. Please tell Eleanor the very next time you see her that if she and Sarah don't soon answer my letters to them, I will think they have forgotten me. And it's clear her letters were valued. There are other letters from family members in the collection, and their stilted language and hesitant flow throw into relief the vibrancy and liveliness of Marie's voice in her letters. Marie was aware her letters were being shared with people back home. Her feelings about that varied, as when she wrote, I think it was rather bold in Cousin Georgie to ask to have my letter read to her. Occasionally, she got irritated with such sharing on the order of, I told you not to tell anyone. But that did not stop her from writing more interesting, shareable things. So she learned to caution her parents about it. This from April 1905. Amy said she had scarlet fever, but she still dare not return to campus until they are sure nothing ails her. I just told Sarah when I wrote that Amy was not well, so be sure to say nothing about the fever part. Marie also paid close attention to keeping her parents informed about when and how they would hear from her. In a November 1904 letter, she wrote, Now, you see, I shall not be able to write next Sunday being at Amy's, but I will write as soon as I can when I come back, and I can't promise how soon that will be, for I have a test in trig the Wednesday after I come back. I will now close this lengthy letter, and I will tell you not to expect so lengthy a one very soon again, so you won't be disappointed if they are brief. And her parents wrote to her just as much as she wrote to them. Marie often begins her letters telling them she received their letters, note the plural, letters, which means her parents were sometimes each writing her. Her letters were addressed to both of them, though she would distinguish her mother or father in a letter if there was a message she wanted to give one of them particularly. And occasionally, she would include a separate private message for her mother. It's no surprise, then, that Marie was quite attuned to the rhythm of the postal week, even the postal day. Mail came and went 3 times a day at the college, so checking for it was part of her daily, even hourly routine. But it doesn't end there. Marie did more than write letters. She also wrote at the time what at the time were termed postals, we would call postcards. In fact, there was something of a postal craze in the late 19th and early 20th century down to World War I. In fact, I have an example of this for my own family history. We have a collection of such postals sent to my grandfather, Henry Ackerman, dating from 1912. The messages were short. The images on the front varied from jokey cartoons to some local place of interest or a spray of flowers. As my brother commented when we were looking at these one time, they were basically tweets. Marie even invested in a postcard album to display those sent to her and reported in an October 1906 letter, I just counted my postals and altogether have 500. Pretty good, isn't it? And she wasn't above chiding her parents, perhaps in a generational way, when she asked them to send her some. This from December 1905. Received the postals, and I am sorry I neglected to tell you to send them through the mail. The chief charm in a sometime postal is the fact that it comes through the mail and has the postmark and some writing on it. It does not matter this time, but you will not send them this way again, I hope. The more I thought about this, the more it seemed Marie was living in a golden age of mail delivery. And in fact, there are some histories of mail delivery in late 19th century Great Britain and the US that confirm this. In late Victorian Britain, for example, in major cities, the mail could be delivered up to 12 times a day. It would be easy to send a message with the 7:30 a.m. pickup and expect a response after lunch. It wasn't quite email, but for its time, it was pretty darn close. Another component of the sociable media was packages. These included food, a lot of food, but also the laundry box, as many students found it cheaper to mail their laundry home to get it done rather than pay the college to do it. And other things could be tucked into that box going and coming, which Marie often recorded in her letters. There was also the telescope, something Marie frequently mentioned receiving and sending. When I first encountered this term in her letters, I thought it was a periodical. I mean, it'd make a great name for one. But it became clear over time that this was a long, probably reinforced mailing receptacle for things that could be rolled up, like sheet music, magazines, and newspapers. The paraphernalia of letter writing, pens, mostly dip pens, paper, ink bottles, blotters, etc., were also topics Marie wrote about, sometimes with chagrin. Her penmanship seems to be something her parents evidently got after her about. So on November, and she notes this in a November 15th letter, 1902, I don't have time to spend on my penmanship, for last night I was studying when the lights went out. I hope you people can read my letters. And about 2+ weeks later, you will have to excuse my writing, but there are about 6 drops of ink in the bottle, and you can't imagine how dreadful it is with such a little bit. Oh, and about 10 days later, I guess you will have to put up with a lead pencil as our ink is all gone. And of course, we cannot buy any today. She was writing on a Sunday. And yesterday it was so stormy that we could not go out. Her tally of letters, postals, packages sent and received reminded me of getting likes today when one is online. For Marie, it was a very material kind of social media, powered by handwriting. Even when tragedy struck, Marie used the context of letter writing to deal with it. In February 1905, her roommate Amy's younger sister died tragically. They thought it was probably from a stroke. And Amy's heartbroken letter to Marie is included in this collection. Marie sent it to her parents and talked about how to respond. I hope that you folks will write to her, whichever one of you would be best, and I suppose that's Mama. I have just written her the best I could. I wasted 4 different pen stubs trying to say the right thing, and I guess I made a dreadful stagger of it. I simply can't study this evening, for I can't get them all out of my thoughts. She also practically begged them to come visit her. She was feeling so low. Which highlights another aspect of Wilson College life, the high volume of visitors to the students. This could be friends from home or former students who came to stay with them, or parents coming to town to spend a night or two and staying at the Washington House Hotel. Visiting, calling, and sleepovers in the dorms were quite common occurrences in Marie's letters. The arrival of parents could set off a round of socializing, as Marie described in this January 1906 letter. Daisy Shebley had her mother up to spend this Sunday, also her little niece, 4 years old, who is positively the cutest little thing you ever saw. Last evening, we all sat at one table in the dining hall and had a cake in honor of Mrs. S. This evening, Amy and I are invited to Daisy's for supper and up to Helen Stewart's room to spend the evening. When Helen's father and mother were here, we were invited over too. Helen has a girl from home visiting her over this Sunday, and that's why we are invited up there for this evening. Amy and I, hence, you see, are indebted to these girls, and we had planned to give a party when you folks came and entertain, have an at-home, you know. Marie's close relationship with her parents is probably the single most important thing that makes these letters so valuable. They were her first confidants, and she said and recounted a lot of things that, well, to be honest, I would never have written to my mother, much less my father, when I was a college student. She knew there was a quartet of sympathetic ears at the other end of the correspondence, eager to listen and to help. For example, in January 1905, Marie talked about her strain in undergoing final exams. Well, this morning we had our test in history. I had myself worked up to such a nervous degree that I had to cry afterwards. I woke early this morning before daylight and worried like the mischief. I just wish I would not get so nervous over the finals, but I know I will. I am so scared. No, do not write and tell me not to worry, because I can't help it. There is such a heap to do, and I could not bear to fail. I do not and will not say anything to anyone else but to you folks about exams, but I must let out sometimes. Despite the absence of their side of the correspondence, one can get some idea at times of her parents' reactions, as in this March 1903 letter. I received your letters this morning, and I must say I was rather provoked. That's actually one of her favorite words, provoked. I was rather provoked that you made such a fuss about my eating such a large breakfast on Sunday. But I was very hungry, and since I had one chance to fill up, I thought I would. Why, my dears, do you think I would be such a glutton as to eat like that always? She could be rather unpleasantly frank about things her parents, mostly her mother, sent her, as in, "This paper you sent is all right, only it is too smooth, and really now I do not care for any more. I can hardly write on it, as I suppose you observe." While Marie's responses to her mother's suggestions or gifts could at times be, in my view, callous, her parents gave as good as they got. This from February 1905. "My English composition was on a pair of scissors. You suggested a lawnmower. Why, I could not possibly write on that, as it is too complicated, and I know nothing about the mechanical part of it." And you can just sort of hear her father snickering there in the background. At times, she talks to them almost like she's the parent, giving orders, issuing reminders, as in this April 1904 letter. "Please send the money as soon as you can. I expect the laundry box Saturday, please." Marie, her parents, and money made for an interesting dance in the letters. In December 1904, when musing over what she wanted for Christmas, she told them, "I wish we were made of money, for I should love to have sloughs to spend now, as there are so many pretty things." She tried to balance this longing for pretty things with what was affordable, using the word cheap to persuade her parents to buy her something, and constantly telling them what she had spent on things to show she was a good steward of her finances. As in, "I got myself some cheap paper. Just think, I got 98 sheets for 12 cents, and it is elegant paper too, though so cheap." She asked for money often, which makes me wonder if she was as good a steward of her finances as she thought, or equally likely that her father liked to keep her on a short leash. He doesn't seem to mind sending her money when she asks, but she has to ask a lot. And while having money to buy pretty things was important, it also becomes clear that Marie would not have minded having it to pay for the kinds of grander experiences Wilson College could provide. And while her parents financed and encouraged their daughter's collegiate career, they were often less supportive of some of her larger ambitions. Her hometown of Mifflinburg, with a population of around 1,500, was basically a village. No wonder Marie worried about how people talked about her back home. Going away to college offered Marie, as it has to so many young people, a wider world with new experiences. Wilson provided, for example, the opportunity to dance. Wilson held lots of dances, often just within the college, so women danced with each other. More than once, Marie lamented her lack of dancing skills and wished that she could, as she put it, dance and lead. After all, at a single-sex dance in Marie's day, one partner had to take on the man's role. Marie pretended to scoff at dances, claiming she only went to see the dresses and eat the free food. But when her mother suggested it was a way to meet people, she replied, "Indeed not, rather a way to be bored." Yet in the fall of 1904, Marie seized an opportunity when some college seniors offered dance lessons as a fundraiser. So she ponied up her 15 cents for each hour of instruction held twice weekly, asking her parents if they objected, which evidently they did not, as she reported on some of her lessons in later letters. Her roommate Amy provided her with more ideas about what the world had to offer. Amy wrote poetry and short stories that got published in the Emerita, served on its board, and was the literary editor of their class yearbook. She later married a man who became a professor of music, and the two toured Europe several times to study art and music. While Marie often criticized Amy in her letters for her seeming childishness and not having enough sense to wear galoshes when it rained, she was also dazzled by the world Amy moved in when she visited her family, one of money and culture. In her later years at Wilson in the spring, she would talk to her parents about getting Amy and other student friends to visit her in Mifflinburg. In May of 1904, she wrote, "Yes, I want Amy to visit this summer. I would like to show her as nice a time as possible. There are mighty nice people at home. There's a nice crowd of boys, too, but the girls are not quite, well, they are not the kind of girls Amy introduced me to, but I can't help it, and I want to have her meet people and be in a crowd of young people like I was at her place. You must not now go and think I want to act smart or anything else, because you know yourself just how it is." The Wilson faculty also offered opportunities that seized Marie's imagination. In December 1904, she wrote excitedly of a summer trip abroad proposed by her German teacher. She had a meeting of some of us last evening and then asked us to hand our parents' names in, and she would write them during vacation. I did not intend to hand yours in, for I, of course, never thought of going, but then, just for fun, I decided to hand it in so if you get a letter from her, you will know why. Marie thereafter occasionally asked her father if he had heard from Miss Macomb, but there seems to have been silence on the parental end. Marie tried again a year or so later when another such trip was being planned. I am crazy to go, for it's a wonderful thing. It's a long time ahead, but if I could work and earn some money after I'm through school, maybe then in a couple of years, I could go. And the trip would be so much better at broadening since I have had a taste, and no little a one, of school life. I mean, at any rate, to strive to take the trip before I die. In her junior year, Marie again tried to get parental consent to spend several weeks that summer at a camp for poor children located outside Washington, D.C. Marie even paid a visit to Miss Tanner, the sponsoring teacher, to learn more, and she and Amy decided they wanted to go together. Her parents responded quickly in the negative, and Marie backpedaled. Your letter came last evening. Do not get excited, for I will make no plans for Washington, of course, without your consent. And if you do not desire me to do it this summer, all right. But there are more summers after this one, and the camp is not going out of existence in one season. So I can go later, perhaps next year. At any rate, I expect to try that kind of thing sometime in the future, as it interests me. Whether Marie realized these dreams is unknown. From inferences in her letters, it seems that her father planned on having her work at his bank after she graduated. But it's clear Marie knew what Wilson was doing for her and could not understand those who did not feel the same. She conducted a persistent campaign to get her ex-roommate Sarah to think better of Wilson. Sarah left in the middle of her second year, sick of the college. Marie kept up a correspondence with her and especially sought to have Sarah come for the 1906 May Day celebration, which was one of the highlights of the school's festive calendar. I am so anxious, she wrote, to have Sarah see it, for she can tell you about it, and then too, I want her to see that Wilson can do things. In this, she reported success, because Sarah, Marie wrote, besides having a good time, got her opinion of Wilson changed to the better, and that was what I wanted. Over and over again, I was impressed by and taken with Marie's honesty and feistiness about people, her parents, about herself, and life at Wilson. While Marie expressed self-doubts and got cases of nerves, her ambition to succeed at the college never wavered. For her, Wilson certainly did do many great things. So I want to thank you, and I think there's a final image for you all. Let's see that. Last image. Are we going to get the last? There it is. This is Marie and Amy's dorm room, because among the collection, there was also a scrapbook, and that was fun to see her. And you can see Bucknell and Lafayette in 1907 and other things. Maybe that's Amy's side of the room. I don't know. Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Kay. I'm gonna jump here I don't see any questions in the chat. Does anybody feel free to unmute yourselves and ask any questions that you might have? I'll start. How long, what was the total number of letters that
I haven't counted them, but there's hundreds.
Hundreds, okay.
Yeah.
And are you done? You're completely
when I presented in March, I had just started her 1906-07 year.
Okay.
And so now I finished 1906-1907, but there are more letters in the collection that go down, not a lot of them, but a couple dozen. They go down to, I think 1926 is the last year you get any. I'm working on about a half a dozen or more letters right now that she wrote in 1912 when she took the train across the country to actually visit one of her Wilson friends, which she mentions, Alice Butterfield. Yeah.
That's who they caught the curtain on fire with.
Yeah.
All right. Does anybody else have any questions?
There is one in the chat, I think, from Judy Grove. And she's talking about a scrapbook from 1926.
Oh, okay. I
And
don't know if
actually, the college, the Hankey Center, has quite a few scrapbooks. And 1926 would fit in well with another Wilson student whose letters some students, as well as I, worked on back in the 90s and the aughts, written in the 1920s by Helen Carnell Eden. She came to Wilson in the fall of 1925 and graduated in 29. And so now that we've got Marie's letters done and Helen's letters done, it would make they're great for comparing two generations of Wilson students and their view of the college. So they're both wonderful sets of letters.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Sarah from class of 1977. I'm so fascinated by the photograph or aerial view of the college with Philadelphia Avenue going straight through it. Is there a way you could post it or send a picture of it or let us take a photograph of it? Because it's so interesting.
I mean, I think I got that from the archivist. I don't, I mean, I don't know. I guess you could write the Hankey Center, talk to Elizabeth McElhenney, and she
Yeah.
could probably send you an image
Yeah.
if you wanted one.
That'd be my suggestion. If you need her information, you can shoot me an email at aroffice@wilson.edu and I can send you her information if you need it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I see another question in the chat box from Judy. Did Marie come back to her reunions? And yes, she did. And in fact, I went looking through the alumni notes because I wanted to know that. And one of them, it might have been one of the anniversary years, like the 25th or something, but she and Amy got together. So that was fun to see them.
Liz is on here. She's in the chat. She put her email
Hi, Liz.
in there.
Oh, there she is.
I didn't
Great.
realize you were on here.
I just wanted to thank you for doing this. And I wanted to say, as a teacher, how much the students today are very similar to her. For example, the comparing of the grades, and I didn't work as hard. I still see students with that. And as a teacher, it was really cool to see that they were cheating back in 1900 because I argue with my colleagues that students have cheated and they're like, oh no, cheating's a new, it's just grown. I'm like, no, it hasn't. So it was really cool to see that they were still facing some of the same issues we do today.
Yes,
Well, we've got a minute or two left. If you could go back to the very first slide, the one with her handwriting on it.
Yeah. I tried to read that, and obviously there's some words that are so evident, but then there's others that I can try to figure it out, but I suppose
it's very loopy, and that can be a challenge because and context matters so much. You'll look at a word and like, what the heck is this? But if you get the sentence, but that doesn't help when she's writing proper names. You just have to hope she'll mention it again and write more clearly. There are a couple of ticks, though, that are also kind of helpful. If you look at this, she has what I call a delayed crossing of her T's. And some of you may have noticed that. And so that's actually useful. When I see a word and I see that dash sort of floating there, I'm like, okay, this word has a T in it. That's at least one clue.
Yeah. Like in that first sentence, I suppose you have my Sunday letter and have sent for I don't know that last word.
The dress.
Dress. Okay. Yeah.
Clothing. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it goes on. I saw Miss Eastman. She was the dean at the college the first year Marie was there yesterday. And as she sometimes do these little interlineations that are at an angle, they're diagonally written in.
Yeah.
And as Roman history is on my certificate, I do not need to take it next term or to be examined in it. So that gives me only 3 studies for next term. And as I can take music. Yeah. Of course, any student here who does not study rhetoric must belong to an essay class. So I shall have, and I think she goes on to talk about that.
Yeah.
But she has all sorts of little interesting quirks that after 5 years of letters, I've mostly figured out.
Yeah. So fun.
Do you know, did she marry or did she remain single?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she did. In fact, we have a little time here, so I have a second little something here about what happened in her final year and sort of a little bit beyond. So I'll tell you a little bit more. For her senior year, Marie and Amy and another friend, Isabel Sadler, moved into a set of rooms, a suite, I guess, in South Hall. And in the fall of 1906, Marie was very busy with the doings of this club that she just starts talking about. She never talked about, oh, they recruited me for this club and I got in. Suddenly it's just like, hey, the club is doing this, the club is doing that. So maybe it happened over the summer or something. I don't know. But there were two social clubs at this time, the Aloha Club, which Marie belonged to, and her roommate belonged to the Skull and Dagger. And the college was even building them their own clubhouses at the time. So this was a big deal. But she had a lot of medical problems her senior year. In the fall, she damaged an eardrum, which led to many visits to a Chambersburg ear doctor. And then in the early part of 1907, well, let me just interleave that with in early January, February 1907, it was all about finding a man for the junior senior prom. That had been instituted at the college the year before, which was fascinating to me because we all think of the prom as being a high school thing, but it started out at the college level. And so her recounting of the saga of trying to find a man, her hunt for a man is quite entertaining. But back to health issues. In February, she slipped and hurt her knee, which landed her in the infirmary in a room next to some students with the grip, which is their name for the flu, which Marie contracted. And she spent about 2 weeks out of action between her knee and the flu, and she actually was sent home for several days to recuperate. And then in early May, she experienced trouble with her good ear, a lot of ringing and pain. And when she went to the ear doctor, he diagnosed infected eustachian tubes, and he lanced the swelling. I didn't much like reading all these descriptions, but he attributed her ear problem to her adenoids because she didn't get hers taken out when she was young. I remember after reading all this, I'm like, Mom, did I get my adenoids out? Oh, yeah, you were 3 years old. Oh, good. It's like the tonsils. You don't want to get these done when you're an adult. And so when the swelling went down and he deemed it was okay, he used cocaine, presumably as a local anesthetic, and jerked them out. That was Marie's phrase. And that was about mid-May. And all of this, of course, is the buildup to all the celebrations and events going on for commencement and the end of year graduate, which went well into June. They didn't leave the campus till probably the second or third week of June. But she was well enough by that point to participate in the end of year descriptions, graduation celebrations. So the last letter from Wilson was written on May 31st. And we have a couple letters from State College a few weeks later. She went to all their graduation parties and dances. And then I told you she had the letters from 1912. And you asked about marriage. She got married in 1913, interestingly enough, to a man she occasionally mentioned in her Wilson letters, but never with enthusiasm. And so we do have some letters she wrote after her marriage down to 1926, which I haven't gotten to, but I'd found a little genealogical information about her when I was first starting out. And so when she first mentioned this guy, I'm like, that's your future husband. I felt like this voyeur. But whenever she talked about him, she didn't find him terribly impressive. So I don't know what the story is there with their courtship and marriage.
Judy popped another question there in the chat, just if she talked anymore about the Aloha Club.
The Aloha Club. Poor Elizabeth. I was bombarding her questions about these clubs because I was trying to find photos of them, and we do have some information. Liz, I don't know if you have anything to add to that, if you're there. Oh, maybe not. Okay. So if you want more information, she's the one to talk to. I think we might have a little bit, but I don't think there was a lot when I asked her about it. We got some photos. and names. It sounded a bit like a sorority, and they did kind of rush people. She does talk about, oh, we want to get so and so for the club, and the other club wants her too. We hope we get her. And I know under the president research successor, Anna McKeague, she got rid of all those, the sororities.
Yeah, it looks like she has some Greek letters on her wall when you look at that picture, right?
That could be. She
Yeah.
talks, these weren't Greek sororities, although there were some Greek lettered clubs and societies at Wilson. This was the Aloha and the Skull and Dagger. But she also visited places like Dickinson and socialized when she went to visit Amy in Carlisle with some Dickinson fraternity boys.
Interesting.
So that may be she got that from them. I don't know.
Yeah. Very interesting. Well, thank you again so much for your time. And I see Liz popped a link in there to some yearbooks that might have some more photos of the Aloha Club. That's interesting. We have a whole collection here at Alumni House of all the yearbooks in the back, and I can go down a rabbit hole. I'll go looking for something, and then I'm sitting back there for hours just looking through the old yearbooks. I love them.
That's fun.
Yeah. So, well, thank you guys so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. That was fantastic.
Yes.
Well, it was great to see you all.
Yes. And Marie was, just quite a character. I just think, you can picture her as you describe her.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Have a wonderful rest of your day, everybody.